Hello, it is Foundation Friday, June 15th, 2018. Steve Sipress here, and no, you're not suffering from deja vu. Yesterday was Flag Day, but I can't just do one day of Flag Day. Come on now. I'm having Flag Day-itis, and I just had to do it all over again. I'm wearing another flag t-shirt, and I'm standing in front of my flag, which today is, you might see in the background, that is blowing quite a bit, and the sky is quite cloudy and gray. And the temperature right now is less than 90 degrees, which for here at this time of year is just amazing. So it's extremely comfortable. And look at that, my neighbors are doing the whole U-Haul, maybe they're moving in thing just like we just did a week ago. How about that? And so we're enjoying this breezy, little overcast relief from the hot, beating down sun as usual. But Foundation Friday, you didn't come to hear a weather report or to just see the flag flying in the breeze. You came to get a foundational business building tip, so here it is. And I went over this today with one of my newest clients, and it's going to blow up his business and his bank account and make him a ton of money. And you really don't have to change anything you do in your business. It's the concept of what you take for granted, others will pay you for. And Ruben is here, great seeing you. So most business owners make this big mistake. I'm going to give you a couple of big famous, well, they're famous for marketers, examples of how this revolutionized businesses and made bazillions of dollars. One was Albert Lasker, early in the 20th century, that went over to the makers of Lucky Strike cigarettes, who made like a dozen different brands of cigarettes or whatever. And they said, here's the deal. Number one, stop advertising. Hey, I'm back again. I can see I disconnected. So number one, the advice was stop advertising all your mediocre brands. Take all that money you were spending to get a whole bunch of mediocre brands and put it all into one brand, and let's make that one big. And that's an understatement, because Lucky Strike went from, nowhere to #1 cigarette in the entire United States, and it stayed there for years. And it went there with the advertising slogan, "It's Toasted." Now this was made a little more famous in the great TV show Mad Men, the great chronicle of ineffective advertising. Hey, we're back again. And so that show was so much fun to see, because you see these madmen convincing, using the hard-selling, tricky tactics to convince unsuspecting, dumb, big business owners and executives to spend lots of money on crappy advertising. And that was the game, and that's still the game today. Spend billions of dollars on crappy Super Bowl ads and crappy, ineffective ads, and, that's still the game today, that whole madmen. Advertising that makes money are the math men. They do the numbers, and they do direct response advertising. They actually make money from the advertising, so they don't have to be convinced about how story behind the ad and let me just tell. I love that. You see that on the Mad Men, and I know plenty of advertising executives that do that, and I was an advertising executive with a big corporation, and so that's what you do in real life, is you come up with this cockamamie story. Not that you think it'll sell, you just think the advertiser will buy it and want to run it. They'll like it. So you tell this whole story behind the commercial you're running with what's known as a storyboard. That's what you see on the Mad Men show a lot. The thing is, of course, you got to laugh. Number one, if you know the industry and you know those ads don't work and cost a lot of money, and the Mad Men themselves get rich, and the business owners just spend their money and think that's what you're supposed to do. But, why, if the ad's so effective, why does the executive have to be really good at telling a story behind it? Why did Don Draper have to be so persuasive to persuade the executives to run these ads if the ads were good? Then the executives just see them and go, holy crap, it's obvious, people will buy when they see that. No, it had to be, you see, this is the story, whatever. So I digress, but one thing on the Mad Men, they did show, they made it out as if Don Draper was the genius who came out with this It's Toasted campaign that Albert Lasker had launched 50 years previously. And the way Albert Lasker did it is he asked a lot of questions, because that's what consultants do. So instead of being a madman and just coming up with your own story and barking it out at people, be a math man instead and ask a lot of questions. That's what good consultants do. So we'll ask the questions, and Albert Lasker found out and just asked, what's the process for making Lucky Strikes? And they took them through the whole process of, this is where it's grown, and then it's cured, and then it's dried out, and this and that, and whatever. Maybe that's the same thing as cured. And then, we do this, and then we toast it to this number of degrees, and that makes the tobacco easier on the throat and gives it better taste, and a blah, 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 and a this and that. And Lasker was like, whoa, wait a minute, that sounds great. It's toasted. And the guy was like, yeah, no, I mean, that's what every single cigarette is made the same way. That's made, what I've just told you, the tour I just gave you of our facility is how every single cigarette is made. So they're all toasted, they're all whatever, but Lasker was like, but I didn't know that. I never heard of that. And I'm guessing that neither did anyone who smoked cigarettes ever hear of that. See, this is what I'm talking about. It's what the business owner took for granted. Oh, all cigarettes are toasted. Everyone knows that. Everyone knows that where? In the cigarette making industry. Not in the cigarette smoking world. Nobody knew that. And it was proved that nobody knew that because Lasker put that in the ad, ran a whole campaign called It's Toasted, and Lucky Strike became the #1 cigarette in America. People just said, wow, it's toasted, and then explained in the ad the process. And so the prospective buyers, cigarette smokers, had the same reaction that Lasker himself had of like, wow, what a process. That's incredible. That sounds great. I got to get Lucky Strikes. Nowhere did it say in the campaign, Lucky Strikes is the only cigarette that does this, or it's a unique process, or it's anywhere unique process. It just said that's our process. So every other cigarette manufacturer was laughing and looking down and smirking and going, you know, what kind of stupid ad is that? That's how cigarettes are made. That's just the way it is. So they must have been pretty upset when Lucky Strike became #1 in America because of that. Story number 2, similar story, is Claude Hopkins, who was actually a student of Lasker and an early disciple and a protege of Lasker, and took over the advertising agency that Lasker had run, Lord and Taylor. Lord and, I forget the name of it. Anyway, Lord and Thomas. Lord and Taylor's a store in New York where I was born. It's a department store, Lord and Thomas. And so Claude Hopkins, similar, did the same thing. You know, it works, makes sense, this is what you do. Don't be a madman, be a math man. And he got a tour, he took on Schlitz Brewery, the #8 ranked beer in America in sales at the time. And Claude Hopkins said, you know, I'm coming up to the brewery and take me on a tour. Let me see how it's made. And they took him through the process. We got a rather loud bird here who is saying Lucky Strikes. Everyone knows they're toasted. Anyway, so as he was touring through the facility, and Lincoln's here, good seeing you, they came to where they washed the bottles. See, I don't know if you remember, as a kid, the first actually money-making endeavor I ever did was I drove around on my bike, rode it around town, and went into garbage cans all around town and picked out Coke bottles, you know, bottles, and put them in the basket of my bike and rode over to the grocery store and got a penny apiece for them. And I was like, wow, you know, when I get 8 cents, I can buy a pack of baseball cards, or 6 cents, or whatever it was in those days. So that's the first thing I ever did to make money. And that's how it was. All the bottles were returned in those days, and then, of course, they had to be washed to put beer back into them. Well, as the story goes, when they toured them through, they said, here's the bottle washing area, and what we do is we clean all the rods that clean out the bottles. We clean those twice a day to make sure they're kept sterile, and the bottles are as clean and clear and pristine as possible. And we put the bottles through this process 4 times each, so that they're really clean and sterile and pure when we put the Schlitz beer into them and we resell them. And Claude Hopkins was like, wow, that's incredible. And similar to the Lucky Strike, it's the same story, pretty much. They just looked at him and said, yeah, no, that's how it's done. Everyone does that. Every beer company in the world, that's what they do. They get back the dirty bottles and they wash them. And yeah, you got to clean the rods in the room out twice a day. And you got to put the bottles through here 4 times. That's just what it's done. And again, same story, right? Claude Hopkins just said, yeah, you know that and you take it for granted. But I don't know that. Beer drinkers don't know that. So when I put in the ad, hey, here's the bottle washing process, people are just going to conclude, wow, Schlitz really cares about me. They really clean those bottles out. They really want to have the purest, cleanest water and beer going into there and therefore going into my body, which, you know, I drank a lot of beer back in the day, as Reuben would attest if he's still here, one of my law school roommates, where we certainly did a lot more beer drinking than going to class, that's for sure. I mean, I must have spent 10 times as much time drinking as we ever did studying and going to class, so I certainly know what drinking beer is, and I don't think we really cared that the bottles are washed 3 or 2 times or 4 times or 6 times, but you know, we didn't know. But the point is, we didn't know. We wouldn't know, but somebody said, hey, you know, this one beer, the bottles are washed 4 times because we really care and whatever, like, and you're in a liquor store, a beer store, supermarket aisle, whatever, and you see 42 different brands of beer and they're all around the same price and they all look the same. You're like, what the heck? Schlitz, you know, I got a good feeling about that one. It's the same cheap price as all the other crap beer. Oh, we're back again. So you might, and we are back again. And so I can take a hint. I'm going to end this real quickly now, real soon, but that's basically it. You might make that decision when there's no other differentiating factor and the price is the same, the quality is the same, it's all crappy low-price beer, but something in your mind goes, but this one cares. Well, proof is in the pudding, right? Schlitz shot up from the number 8 beer in America to number 1. So say that 10 times fast, right? Schlitz shot up. I will only say it that one time because it might be mixed company here on the video. And Schlitz became number 1 in America. So there you go. 2 examples of what the business owner, executives, workers themselves took for granted. Sure, all tobacco is toasted. That's how cigarettes are made. Sure, all bottles are washed 4 times and gone through the thing. And, you know, that's just how it's done. Like, what you take for granted in your business, others will pay you for. They will say, that sounds awesome. So you've got to tell people. So it's not about, I got to change what I do and come up with something unique and magical and spectacular. To your prospect, what you do is already unique and magical and spectacular. You just need to bring it out or hire someone who will. Hire an advertising expert like Albert Lasker or Claude Hopkins or me or somebody that will come in and do that, or learn to do it yourself. I went through it today with a client because he probably didn't want to take years and years and years to learn this, so he paid me a little bit of money and he gets to put a ton of money in his pocket instead. So get an expert to do it yourself, but some way. This is a valuable skill to have, to pull out of your process of the way you do business, something that you take for granted, and put it forth in a way because you realize that your prospects will actually pay you for that. They'll do business with you instead of your competitors, just because you're the only one out of all your competitors telling people something that sounds great about how everyone does it. So it doesn't have to be unique. It's unique because your prospect has never heard that story before and doesn't know the inner workings. So today I did it with a new client who's a roofer, a contractor. You could be a plumber, you could be an attorney, you could be a heating and air guy, you could be a doctor, a dentist, a chiropractor, you could be an auto repairman, you can be any type of business owner at all. There is something in the routine way that you take for granted that every one of your competitors and everyone in your industry does something, but your prospect, if you put it the right way and in the right terms and you present it correctly, your prospect will go, wow, that sounds awesome. I'm going to do business with them instead of all the others. That's the Foundational Friday tip today. Hope you take it to heart. Hope you make a ton of money from it. If you want some help, go to stevesipress.com/consultation. I'll get on the phone and help you pull something out of your business, make it sound special and spectacular and magical, and help you put a ton of money in your pocket, because that's what I do. So happy day after Flag Day, or Flag Day 2 as we call it. And I'll be back tomorrow with Success Story Saturday. I love telling success stories. I love reading them, and I love telling them success stories about successful entrepreneurs. Get your mind in the right place that you too can be a successful entrepreneur. See you tomorrow. Thanks for being here today. Bye-bye.